So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! The Detroit Lions are going through some coaching changes this offseason. After a year where the Detroit Lions saw more success than they have in the last 30 years, the Lions are making some changes. They decided that good wasn't good enough and that they were going to overhaul their coaching staff at least a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. And they were going to try to go all in and make some big moves this offseason and get this coaching staff set for 2024. And this week, the Detroit Lions unfortunately saw the loss of 6 different defensive coaches, along with the hiring of 3 brand new ones. So today, we're going to take a look at the coaching staff changes, talk if they're good or bad, and what the Detroit Lions are doing in the direction they're moving forward for 2024. So with all of that being said, let's start off with the coaches that are departing. The Detroit Lions ended up releasing 6 coaches this week, that being senior offensive assistant Jim Holster, defensive quality control coach Wayne Blair, defensive line coach John Scott, cornerbacks coach Dre Bly, DBs coach Brian Duker, as well as senior defensive assistant John Fox. Now, I can't say very much for Jim Holster as to why he is gone, nor can I say for Wayne Blair, or really, I think John Fox. A lot of their roles are in the background. A lot of their roles aren't necessarily seen on game day, and it's hard to tell what they had a hand in accomplishing and what they played a hand in as far as the failure of the team. But for John Scott and Dre Bly, I can speak to the positions and how they played. And I think that these are good moves. I think that John Scott really had the defensive line regress this year after a great season under Todd Wash in 2022. The 2023 Detroit Lions defensive line really seemed to regress. Charles Harris regressed back to a really poor state. Romeo Okwara was not very good. Even Aiden Hutchinson seemed to regress very early in the season. And I think towards the end, his natural talents kind of came out and they saw him kind of be successful statistically. But for long stretches of the 2023 season, Aiden Hutchinson also seemed to have regressed along the defensive line. I think this is the right move for the Lions. This is the one coaching staff change I really wanted the Lions to make this year. And John Scott is officially out the door, being replaced with somebody with a much better resume, a much stronger experience, as well as just somebody I think fits the Lions a little bit better. Now, Dre Bly was a first-year defensive backs coach, a first-year cornerbacks coach with the Detroit Lions in the NFL, had spent the last couple of seasons with North Carolina coaching their defensive backs to be kind of a middling road in the college football ranks. A lot of people thought he was going to be good, a former Detroit Lions cornerback, somebody that kind of fits what Dan Campbell likes in a coach. But unfortunately, the secondary ranked just 27th in the NFL. Cam Sutton did not have a good year. Jerry Jacobs ended up getting benched, and they were relying on Kendall Vilder as well as, of course, Cam Sutton to be the cornerbacks that didn't quite get the job done. Again, the Detroit Lions seem to have found a much better defensive coach. They seem to have found a much better, more experienced defensive backs coach, but I think Dre Bly is a guy that, the Lions really liked, but I think after the season that they had, I think the turnover and, of course, the need to win soon leads the Detroit Lions to not have time to develop or take a chance on year 2 of Dre Bly's coaching. Now, getting into the players or getting into the coaches that are getting new jobs this offseason, the Detroit Lions, of course, signed Terrell Williams to be the defensive line coach, as well as the run game coordinator for the Detroit Lions on the defensive side of the ball. Now, we've already made a video talking about Terrell Williams, so we'll make this one a little bit quick. He's been coaching since 1998, so just 26 years of experience on the defensive line. He's coached guys like Khalil Mack, Ndamukong Suh, as well as Cameron Wake. And then over the last 3 years in Tennessee, he has had three different players get 10 plus sacks. His run defense for those 3 years ranked first, second, and then 17th this past year. So he's had 2 of 3 years with elite run defense. He had 1 year with a top 10 pass rush in the NFL, but has never fallen below a top 20 pass rush in the NFL. For reference, the Detroit Lions were the 24th best pass rush as far as sacks a season ago. So I think Tyrell Williams will be able to kind of fix this defensive line. He has the work, he has the experience. I think he'll be able to get it done with the talent and potentially draw a couple defensive line prospects to Detroit through free agency. Now, taking a look at the newest signing of the Detroit Lions, that would be Deshaun Townsend, a player that played in the NFL from 1998 to 2010 and then started his coaching career right after that with I believe he started at Northwestern and then made his way to the NFL ranks and then went back to college a little bit. He's been all around. He's been a DB coach since 2011, all the way up through 2024. And he's seen quite a bit of success when it comes to DB coaching. He's a player that he started at Mississippi State with the Bulldogs, where he saw one player have 5 interceptions in his first year as a coach and be named to an all-SEC honor. He then went to the Tennessee Titans, his first NFL DB coaching job, where Kevin Byard became a first-team All-Pro and one of the best safeties in the NFL. He went to the New York Giants, where he saw both Janoris Jenkins and Landon Collins make the Pro Bowl as their defensive backs coach. He went to Chicago, where Kyle Fuller had an All-Pro nod as well as multiple Pro Bowls, as well as going to Jacksonville over these last 2 seasons, where the secondary wasn't phenomenal, but I think the safeties and the body of work that the safeties showed, especially last year with Andre Sisco and Rashad Jennings, show that, even though there weren't a ton of awards, there was some solid play in the secondary, as both of them last season walked away with 3 interceptions apiece. I think coming to Detroit, Deshaun Townsend would be a really big piece for the Detroit Lions. I think he can get a lot out of Cam Sutton. I think if the Lions do end up going with a high-drafted rookie cornerback, he can get a lot out of them. I think this is a great move for Ifeatu Melifonwu and Kirby Joseph. A lot of safeties seem to really thrive under Deshaun Townsend, and he's just a player that played DB in the NFL. He's a guy that has coached DBs for a long time. He's seen a lot of success and a lot of accolades come the way of his defensive backs when they play under him, and I think that it is a very, very strong move for the Detroit Lions. Somebody with a lot of experience, both playing as well as coaching the position. And I think that he is just going to be an upgrade over Dre Bly. I wouldn't be surprised if they see a Pro Bowl out of the secondary this year, whether that be Kirby Joseph, whether that be Ifeatu Melifonwu, whether that be CJ Gardner-Johnson returning, or Cam Sutton having a big year, or a rookie cornerback like Kool-Aid McKinstry having a great start to his NFL career. Brian Branch, I think, could improve a ton under Deshaun Townsend. And I think there's a lot of talent in this secondary. And I think Townsend is the guy that can get a lot out of it, because I think, honestly, on paper, the secondary, if you add a cornerback, one and a little bit of depth, is really, really strong. And then the last player we're going to be taking a look at is, of course, going to be Jim O'Neill, a guy that has been around the NFL for a very, very long time. He has been a defensive coach going all the way back to 2001. So 23 years of coaching experience. I think you can see a theme here with the guys that they hired, right? John Scott was a first-year coach who would never really coach the defensive line before by himself. Dre Bly was never been an NFL defensive backs coach. The Lions want experience. The Lions are done looking at first-year guys. They're done taking a risk on young coaches that could develop and could become really good. They have turned into if you have experience, you will probably get the job, right? You have Terrell Williams with 23 years of experience. You have, of course, Townsend, who I believe now has 11 years of NFL experience coaching as well as 11 years playing. And now you have Jim O'Neill, who has coached all the way back since 2001 and has been an NFL defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, defensive backs coach. He's been defensive assistants. He's been defensive coordinators. He's been defensive line coach all the way down at the college ranks. He was a DC in both college and the NFL for multiple teams. He has a ton of experience calling plays, a ton of experience with game planning. And I think as a defensive assistant, he will be a really good addition, a really good mind in the room. And I think he could come up with quite a few good game plans and help Aaron Glenn prepare on a week-to-week basis. Now, again, I think this one is a little bit harder to grade as far as a defensive assistant because we don't know what the defensive assistant does week to week specifically. He could go from anything from game planning to, getting a particular group ready to play. But I think Jim O'Neill has a lot of experience, obviously has experience with defensive backs, linebackers, as well as the overall defensive coordinating position. And I think his experience at all three of those positions could help. I think he's going to be a great addition for the linebackers. I think him and Townsend will be great for the defensive backs. And again, a game planning situation, a former defensive coordinator for both the Cleveland Browns as well as the San Francisco 49ers, you could do a lot worse as far as the experience goes. So with all of that being said, the Detroit Lions do release 6 coaching staff members, but they do hire 3 guys that combine for over 60 years of experience, both playing and coaching. And I think the Lions are ready to make a big push. I think all 3 of these signings are fantastic for the Detroit Lions, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple other players, like, again, a defensive quality control coach to replace Wayne Blair, potentially a senior offensive assistant to replace Jim Holster, as well as potentially a cornerbacks coach to officially replace Drew Bly, because, again, Townsend is the DB's coach, not necessarily the cornerbacks coach. So I think they will be looking for that position to fill as well. If those do happen, of course, we'll be back to talk about it. But with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. That is the coaching update. Those are the coaching changes, and that is how the staff is shaping up to look for 2024. Let me know your opinion on any of the 3 signings and any of the 3 hires. I'd be very curious what you guys have to say. With all that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. If you've made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing and liking the video. Helps the channel out a ton. And if you love Detroit Lions content, of course, you'd want to stick around. With all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.